Well, hello, everyone. Before we get started today with this virtual forum, I wanted to let everyone know that today's forum is being recorded and live captioning is provided. If anyone attending would like a copy of the recording, you're welcome to email the Ohio Olmsted Task Force at ohioolmsted@gmail.com. And I will post that in the chat as soon as I'm finished here. Again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Direct Care Workforce Crisis Virtual Forum. My name is Sue Hetrick, and I'm the Executive Director at the Center for Disability Empowerment, which serves Central Ohio. This forum is organized by the Ohio Olmsted Task Force, along with Ohio Centers for Independent Living. The OOTF, or Ohio Olmsted Task Force, is a coalition of Ohioans with disabilities, advocates, and organizations working to promote the right to live, work, and participate in our communities. For many years now, people with disabilities in Ohio have struggled to find reliable direct care workers that will allow them to remain independent, avoid institutionalization, and age in place. In-home care is the glue that makes independence for many people with disabilities possible. Without it, many people cannot work, go shopping, or socialize independently and in their own home. Yet, despite advocates' attention to this issue, Ohio agencies have done little to alter the current system that fails to properly develop and reward the direct care workforce. The Ohio Olmsted Task Force is asking that we change this fact, that Ohio find a way to eliminate the tedious bureaucracy, to increase wages, provide benefits and educational incentives, and recruit those called to provide health care to the field. Direct care workers, who are also known as direct support professionals, home care workers, job coaches, and many other titles, help people stay out of unnecessary nursing homes and assisted living facilities. Direct care workers provide hands-on care to people that need help with different daily tasks. They bathe, feed, remind, teach, befriend, and drive. Because of them, people with disabilities can go to work and school and stay active in their family, their church, and community. They are, in short, the backbone of any personal care plan. Work for them is often part-time, it's without benefits, it's physically demanding and grossly underpaid. The COVID pandemic has made this crisis even worse. The Ohio Olmsted Task Force believes that lack of access to in-home direct care is the largest barrier to independent living for people with disabilities in Ohio. We hope that this forum will increase Ohio's attention on what we need to do to fix the direct care system for our friends, neighbors, and family members. For this forum today, we have a wonderful group of panelists. First, we're very pleased to have some of the people who are struggling with this crisis with us to share their stories and highlight the problems they face in finding and keeping direct care workers. Here with us today is Tanya Fernandez Moat, Jackie Martin, and Kim Kelly. We're also very honored to have Senator Andrew Brenner's legislative aide. Is that correct, Charles? Do I have your title correct?
Yep, that is correct.
Sure. Charles, and it's Peary, correct?
Correct.
Is here. As we go forward with this forum, we're going to hear from our panelists that will share how the direct care crisis has impacted their lives. And following that, we're going to have time for Charles to ask questions and share any other comments that you have. Unfortunately, no other legislators were able to join us today. We are going to be recording this, as I mentioned, and this forum and the stories will be shared with them. We are also going to have question and answer time available. If anyone is in attendance and you have a question during the forum, you can go ahead and enter those in the chat box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try and address some of those questions if time allows as well. So you will have opportunity to interact as well, just not live. So with that, I would like to begin our discussion. And the way we're going to organize this is we have a series of questions for the panelists. I'm going to pose a question and then have each of them answer that in turn. And then we'll go on to the next question and the next question after that. So Jamie's going to keep a watch on our time for us so that we're within the time frame and respectful of your time as well. So the first question, if you would each tell us about yourself or the person that you're representing, your family member, whoever it is with a disability, and the impact that the direct care worker crisis has had on your life in brief. So let's start with Jackie first.
Hi, thank you, Sue. So I'm Jackie Martin, and I am mom to Justin Martin, a 25-year-old young man who can't be with us today, but I just wanted to show you a little picture of him. He does exist. That's him testifying at another legislative committee. And what I want to tell you about Justin is he's smart, articulate, educated, fun, and a friend to many, whose goal in life is to become a high school English teacher. He has a bachelor's degree in English from Kenyon College, and he's currently in his second year of his Master's of Education degree at Vanderbilt University. He's in a student teaching placement at Dublin Jerome High School right now. And for the past 5 years, he's taught writing to middle school students at the Thurber House here in Columbus. He's also a strong advocate for people with disabilities, and he testified as a senior in high school before the House Finance Committee about the importance of personal care providers in his life and the lives of many other people with disabilities, and how the direct care worker crisis has impacted his life is by not allowing him to fully participate in his master's degree program. We were unable, after months of trying to secure a staff, to allow him to live on campus. And he therefore had to make that sort of painful decision of not being an in-person student at Vanderbilt University. So that's a little bit about it. I know we can add more as we go on with your questions, Sue.
Great, thank you, Jackie. Tanya.
Hi, everyone. I am Tanya Fernandez Moat. I actually have just in June celebrated my 30 years working for the Ohio Department of Health Children with Medical Handicaps BCMH program. I have arthrogryposis and I use personal care assistance. My story's a little bit unique and different that I do not qualify for waivers and services because of my income. I rely heavily on the PCA reimbursement program that gives me a little less than half. I spend about $24,000 a year of my income to live independently and pay for personal care assistance. They help me. I'm very independent, but I only need a few hours a day of assistance. During this crisis, it is basically been very, very hard. I have always put ads in, whether it be Indeed or socialization pages to do my independent contractors. I have found nobody. Currently, I have spent the last 5 weeks sleeping in my wheelchair because I cannot get personal care assistance to fit the timeline of what I need to be able to stay working. It is very impacting of real, true nature that I'm currently being seen by the Riverside Wound Care Clinic because this has been going on since January. I am 55 years old and I have never had the problems that I have now. January, I spent most of the month in my wheelchair as well. So I've had blisters in that I've been trying to get healed since January. It really does impact, you know, your life when you cannot get somebody to assist you. And I'm sure we're going to go into more. I'm grateful for this forum and opportunity. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Tanya. And Kim.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Kelly, and I am the single mother, guardian, person, and provider for my 33-year-old son, Joseph, who lives with me in my family home. Joseph was diagnosed with a rare genetic mutation in 2015 called GNA01. He is the oldest of approximately 250 people in the world and one of 8 with his variant. As a result of this specific mutation, Joseph has never spoken, and he has no use of his body. In addition to the physical limitations, he also has grand mal seizures, scoliosis, a dislocated hip, reflux, obstructive sleep apnea, nocturnal hypoxia, dysautonomia, chemical fragility, and in 2016, he developed multiple uncontrollable body movements known as chorea, dyskinesia, dysphagia, myoclonus, and dystonia. So as you can imagine, he is 24/7 care, and he uses a pharmacy of medicines to ease many of these conditions, all of which go through a G-tube that is permanently inserted in his stomach. At the age of 10, we added nursing to the mix. And as of 1 year ago, he lost his ability to use his hand to answer yes. So now we are 100% dependent on his eye gaze to communicate with him. In October of 2019, he was no longer able to eat by mouth. And so now all of his nutrition goes through his G-tube. And in June 2019, in 2021, we added oxygen to the mix. So his condition is degenerative, and he's somewhat going downhill with it. I was gainfully employed for 35 years because Joseph was enrolled in special programming. He attended school, and from the age of 5, he was enrolled on an individual options waiver, which provided direct care workers to assist with his care and treatment before and after school, Monday through Friday. So we have been receiving that service for 28 years. Now that he no longer attends school, our house runs 24/7, and he receives 100% of his weekly 168 hours of home and community-based services from his team of 3 nurses and 3 direct care aides. I am now retired and spend most of my days either providing the direct care because I am the backup for the people that need scheduled time off or call-offs. And I take care of all the administrative duties that go with running a home care program, which includes finding, hiring, supervising, and training his direct care workers, most of which stay 1 to 3 years. But after 28 years of caring for my son in my home, I'm terrified what will happen in the coming months. With Ohio now in the worst home health care worker crisis in its history, and having just filled a nursing position that was open for over a year, I worry what will happen to him if any of his current staff move on. So, and I know I speak with a lot of parents through social media and private conversations who have spent hours upon hours upon hours trying to find just one aide to assist them because they are currently doing all of it themselves, especially those that live in rural areas of the state.
Thank you, Kim. And we're off and running here. We'll go with our second question. I know as we go along, we will have answered some of these questions. So feel free to address that as you see fit. So the next question is, how do you or the person that you represent routinely use direct care workers? And you've all answered that question somewhat. So we're looking for what types of tasks do they perform? What tasks are you able to perform without the assistance of a direct care worker? What happens when the direct support worker doesn't show up for work? And what do you or the person you represent do if they're unable to find the number of direct care workers required to support you or their needs.
Susan, I have a quick question.
Yes.
If you don't, I'm curious to know, do you have a rough idea of how many direct care workers there were pre-COVID? And I know COVID has taken its toll as far as direct care workers now. Do you know what the number is compared to then?
Kim, are you able to answer that? Because I don't have numbers.
I knew, but it's totally escaped me, but I can get that information for you, Charles, and I
Okay.
will definitely get it off to you later today.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Sure. I know it's quite a large number, and it's not, I mean, this has been going on since 2017, so it isn't necessarily COVID related, but
Okay.
COVID really exacerbated the whole situation, because when you no longer had your kids in school, most of these aides had to quit and stay home and take care of their kids,
Okay.
because they weren't making enough money to pay for daycare.
Gotcha.
And Sue, this is Tanya. Can I also add something to Charles? As
Sure.
far as from my perspective, when I'm doing the independent hiring and everything, there's a lot of times I will hire individuals who have never had experience. They could be art students on college campuses or anything, looking for a part-time job. So they don't necessarily fit into that demographic, but they're looking for a part-time job and they're willing to learn, because for my circumstances, I basically am phrasing it that I'm hiring them independently to help be my hands and legs.
Okay.
With necessarily nursing. So I just want to also say that, there is that other market that could be tapped into.
Perfect.
But,
Okay. That actually helps me with that. So, okay.
and just a little side note, I did try an experiment with Indeed over the last several months. I put in that I would hire an assistant at $50 an hour, and I did not have one person call me about it.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, and I did it just as a social experiment to see what was happening. And that has changed, because a year ago I was paying my assistants $10 an hour and I was having tons of people respond.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So thank you for letting
That's
me
good
share.
to know. I appreciate that.
So Jackie, do you want to start with the, how do you use the direct care workers? What happens
Sure.
there?
Yes. And so in my introduction, I, talked about kind of all the very positive things about my son. And I didn't mention that he actually is a person with a disability. That doesn't define him, but he is a young man who has cerebral palsy. He is non-ambulatory. He has never been able to walk. He was born 3 months premature. He uses a power wheelchair, and he needs moderate to maximum assistance with most activities of daily living that require a physical skill. So that's generally how I learned to describe what his needs are. If you think about everything that you do on a day-to-day basis that requires some level of physical skill, whether it be using your hands, whether it be having trunk control or walking or standing. So I'm just going to run through those for you a little bit. Justin needs moderate to maximum, and most of the time maximum assistance with getting dressed and undressed, transferring in and out of bed, which we do with a ceiling lift system. He weighs 187 pounds. It's no longer can I lift him out of bed into a wheelchair. And we certainly have, for many years now, have not wanted a caregiver, a personal caregiver, to do that lifting for Justin's safety and for their safety. So transferring in and out of bed, on and off the toilet, onto a shower chair, a specialized chair that allows him to shower. He needs maximum total assistance with putting on an external catheter that he uses that allows him freedom throughout the day to not have to depend on a person to transfer him on and off of the toilet when he needs to urinate. He needs maximum assistance with showering, with brushing his teeth, with combing his hair, putting on his leg braces and shoes, which his braces are required every day, repositioning in a wheelchair, which includes for him, he has a wheelchair that goes into standing. Some people use as a medical device a stander that is important for their legs and their trunk, torso, and equally as so for Justin. However, he can't independently do that. He needs someone else to physically put the straps on. He needs assistance, maximum assistance, opening medication bottles, preparing meals that include cutting his food and positioning a plate and a glass or cup within reach for him. So he's able to utilize utensils and feed himself, but he cannot prepare the meal, bring it to the table and cut it himself. Now, again, it's kind of with his circumstances, depending on where he's been in his young life here, grocery shopping. Of course, he lives in my home. And so I do that grocery shopping. But as we were preparing to transition him to live on campus at Vanderbilt, where he did not have a dining plan, a meal plan, but had an apartment with a kitchen, he needs somebody to do that grocery shopping, bring the groceries inside, prepare the meals, and position it on a plate for him. Gathering and packing his messenger bag to allow him to go to school or go to work. It has to be right with him, right in front of him so that he can access it. But putting all of those things, so again, you can see my hands. I talk with my hands, but we all do so much with our arms and our hands that we don't think about. And he's not able to do any of that and needs someone else to do it. Now that we're all putting on face masks, he needs somebody to put that face mask on for him. Cleaning his eyeglasses. He doesn't have the ability in his hands to clean his eyeglasses, which any of you who are eyeglass users, you do that many times a day. Laundry, housekeeping. If he's outside, going about, to classes, he needs someone to, if it's raining, or to hold an umbrella for him, because having to utilize using one hand, which we call the good hand, the one that is most functional, functions the joystick. The other arm is not as functional and cannot hold an umbrella. So he needs someone to do that. He does not drive. He's not able to drive. So he needs someone to drive him to work, school, social activities, doctor's appointments. He also needs assistance with his exercise and stretching program, which we all need exercise and can benefit from stretching. But someone with cerebral palsy, it's pretty much a requirement to their life in order to fend off or delay further physical medical problems. And so that's part of his day-to-day activity. And he needs someone to assist him with that. And then just, those are kind of the basic things, but general assistance throughout the day, such as this external catheter that I mentioned, that has allowed him a great deal of freedom. It also, like many things, comes with some snags. Sometimes those things come off unexpectedly. And if that happens during the day, he needs someone to physically change his clothes, put on a new catheter, get him back in and out of his wheelchair. That whole process can take like 20 minutes to do. And the alternative is he would sit in urine soaked clothes. And other things like answering the door. We have our home modified to a great extent, but our front door is one, it's not where the ramp is, doesn't have an automatic door. If someone comes to the door, he can't answer the door, open that door on his own. And his phone, his phone is really a lifeline for him and for many people with disabilities. If there is not someone that's right there, or like his experience when he lived on campus at Kenyon College, the care providers sometimes were in an adjacent room, so that they weren't hovering over him. But if he needed them, or if he was on the other side of campus and it started pouring down rain and he needed someone to come help him put a coat on or umbrella or whatever, it's your phone. Well, again, if you don't have that ability in your hands to grasp onto a phone, it often falls to the floor. If you're sitting in a wheelchair without the ability to really have the physical strength to control your torso, you're unable to pick up your phone from the floor and need someone there to do it, which is why when he was a student at Kenyon College, we had to have someone 24/7 on site, because anything could happen during the night once he was in bed, once the caregiver transferred him to his bed for the night. If he had to go to the bathroom, or, if he had to go to the bathroom, he had to have his phone handy there in order to text or call the care provider, who was really next door, adjacent, to come help him. It's happened even in our home here, which is not a huge home by any means, but he would be in his bedroom and drop his phone and maybe have some trouble.
Jackie, just real quick before I move on.
Sorry.
No, don't be sorry at all. I want to make sure everybody gets in there, but I need you to answer the question of what happens to Justin or to your family or to his circumstances if you don't have help in any of those areas.
Right. Well, right now, Justin lives in our home. And that is, he doesn't want to live here. Not that he doesn't love us, that he has the typical desires of a 25-year-old young man who wants to be as independent as possible. So, but his father and I are the natural supports. We are here. Now, when I think about the two different circumstances, what he actually did accomplish at Kenyon College, if there was not a caregiver there, he would not be able to get out of bed. He would be stuck in bed. He would not be able to get dressed, potentially get his food. The same thing would have happened at Vanderbilt had he been able to go, had we been able to find providers, that it would have been even more. My husband and I were back up when he was at Kenyon College, which is an hour and a half away from our home. If something happened and the staff couldn't work it out themselves for someone to cover, there were times that I went an hour and a half away, but if he would have been to Vanderbilt, it would have been longer. It falls upon our family, and don't get me wrong, it's not that we don't want to do that. It's just, we also both have jobs, my husband and I. So, if he did not have a care provider, and I guess I consider myself the unpaid care provider right now, because
Got it.
we have a provider.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Tanya, can you answer those questions?
Yes. Basically, first off and foremost, I'm in my situation where I'm staying up in my chair because the option for me is I had an assistant who quit. I was in bed. It took me 9 hours to be able to get a friend of mine with her schedule to come help me. My house is accessible enough where I can, thank goodness, unlock my door from my bedroom because of technology and everything. But without having the security of having a morning person and an evening person and everything, my options are I can't have somebody put me in bed and that be the end result. I am fortunate enough, my disability, I'm missing my left arm. I have no use of my right arm. I am in an electric wheelchair. All of my joints are fused. But I am fortunate enough that everything, if I can set up and if I can plan, I right now am going sometimes, and I don't like to, but I can go a day and a half without seeing anybody. But when I get somebody here, I need the assistance of the toiletry, the bathing, all the things that people take as human rights for granted that we all want access to. I was laughing with my assistant the other day because it had been 2 days since I'd brushed my teeth, and I spent an extra 20 minutes because it was such an amazing feeling to brush your teeth. You really don't stop and think about what all individuals with extreme disabilities have to rely on. But if everyone would actually kind of focus on that a little bit more, then I think hopefully it would help. I mean, all of the things, like I said, yes, I'm independent when I'm in my chair, but my body's taking a toll for it. The fact, as the doctor's working with me saying, well, we can't have you just stuck in the bed, because if you're stuck in the bed, you can't, with a little bit of assistance, my medications, I've learned, I put them in little dispense bottles that I can flip open. I set them together once a week so that, they're where I can reach them and open them. So if I'm in my chair, I can at least do that. But sometimes I'll go, I'm what I refer to as an iceaholic. I love ice. I can't get ice. So if I don't have anybody come over for a couple of days or whatever, I get panicked of, am I going to run out of the drinks that I can reach because I can't reach my faucet to turn it on. So like I said, my accessibility as far as like when I'm up for work and everything, because I feel like 30 years of paying back into society and everything, I think that the system is sometimes broken, because instead of rewarding people that are paying in their taxes and everything else, I'm not, ashamed to say that with my income, that exactly half of my income went for me paying to live independently. And a lot of people say, well, why don't you just quit and and it's like, well, then you don't really know me. And Sue, you've known me for many years. You understand I'm a very big advocate in the disability arena, and that's not what it's about. So like I said, all these things that there are so many things, the meal prep and everything that go into existence. I try to, when I working with my contractors, as I like to call them, that, I tell them I'm not going to ask them to do anything that is illegal or harmful for them or myself. But other than that, I give them a list of things. They always want to know, well, what all does it include? Well, the little tagline is, it includes anything and everything I may need help with, because I can't list anything and everything. I can list the generalities of going through the day, of getting up and going through and blah, 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 blah. But, there's so many things that you think about, like going to the it's like, you can't. I have the ability that I can get out of my apartment, but then I can't get back in because of the doors downstairs. Or if I go to the store, I can carry a credit card to purchase something, but then I can't bring it home. So you rely on possibly, ordering and having servers when they deliver. The young people are, great, a little bit of understanding. I give them a little extra tip to help maybe don't leave it on the door, maybe put it on the table, but the masks and everything else that are required, even though you tell everybody you're vaccinated, you're still trying to wear the masks, you're trying to do the right things, but you need the assistance doing it. And like I said, that's, the alternative for me is being in that bed situation. And I at one time had to call the emergent number because this was a long time ago, but and I hear the first responders talk about they've seen individuals where unfortunately they've been lying in their own feces and urine for maybe days at a time and can't eat and stuff like that. So it is impactful, and that's, I'm here to say that anything, you have a question about, I will gladly. There's not anything in my life that I feel is off limits or too private of a conversation to not have.
Thank you, Tanya. Kim.
So my son Joseph is in solitary confinement until someone engages with him. And Jackie and Tanya talked about the nuances that go with all of these things. I'm just going to mention all of the processes that they do for my son. And I won't go into detail because I think that the detail that has already been provided really speaks to this. The direct care workers that we use in the house during the day perform all of his personal care needs. That includes toileting, bathing, brushing his teeth, combing his hair, dressing him, and toileting him. His toilet regimen, though, is he has, at 33, he will not move his bowels in his diaper. So he has to have access to an adapted toilet, and someone has to put him on there, or he will hold it until he just can't hold it anymore, and then we have a huge mess. He is incontinent, but he can urinate in his adapted toilet, but he also has to be catheterized because he has a neurogenic bladder. And what that means is that he retains his urine and he can't expel it. So we have to catheterize him to get it out of there, or it'll back up and damage his kidneys. They deliver all of his medications through a G-tube. They do all of his feeding, which is done through a pump and through the G-tube in his stomach. They are responsible for, he has his own bedroom, bathroom, and living area. So the aides are also responsible for keeping that clean and tidied up. They transport him into the community. We have a wheelchair van that allows him to attend concerts and festivals and movie theaters and anything that we think that he may choose to do. We certainly ask him first. If he doesn't respond, we kind of just drag him along to get him out of the house and try to provide him with some variety in his life. Otherwise, he would be parked in front of a TV 24/7, and that is not acceptable to me. It's certainly not a life worth living. The only friends that he knows are the people, his direct care staff, because we don't have anybody to come into the house. He's non-communicative. He's a passive receptive communicator. So if, you pretty much are the entertainment, the friend, the parent, everything to him. COVID has kept him home for the better part of 1.5 years. So, we're struggling to find ways to entertain him and keep him from being bored and just getting through the day. He can't even scratch an itch. So if the direct care workers are not there to help him have a life worth living, that's not going to happen, because me as one person living with him can't do it all. It's 168 hours a week. There would be no time for me to do anything for myself. What happens when they don't show up? Well, when they schedule time off or there's call-offs, I take the shift. I am a paid provider because when he turned 18, I took on that role only because of the shortages that we were experiencing at that time. It's always been difficult to find people to serve him because of the severity of his disability, but it's been really difficult in the last 3 to 4 years. We don't have any natural unpaid support. My mother is going to be 97 Saturday. My father's dead. My sister's dead. And I don't really have any other backup support other than me. So if I was not here to back him up, he would be in an institution. And that's okay for some people. I know a lot of people who really appreciate being in that environment, but I don't want that for my son. I don't think he would appreciate that or enjoy that. And so we work very hard to make sure that we get coverage that we need to keep him here. As far as if I can't maintain his staffing, then it all falls on my shoulders, and I'm more than willing to do that. I committed to doing that when I decided to keep him home, and try to provide him with a social life and the care that he deserves, just existing in this world. And I advocate for that. But if we can't solve this workforce crisis soon, I have a fear that we are going to go back. We're going to go back 30 years where institutions are going to become the norm instead of home and community-based services, which is what we are relying on right now.
Yep. Well said. So I want to make sure we leave enough time for Charles to ask questions or people to weigh in on the chat. So I've got 2 more questions for you. If we could keep them as succinct as possible, that would be great. So what do you feel are the 2 biggest challenges, 1 or 2 biggest challenges that you have faced when trying to find, to hire, or to keep direct care workers? Jackie.
Yeah, I think that that question, along with, not to preempt you, but the other question about what I think would end the direct care worker crisis, I feel like for me are first and foremost a simple answer of, if as a society we say that we value people with disabilities, then we must value the people who care for them. And so that's the direct care providers. We must pay them a livable wage. We must provide them with health insurance benefits. And we must make it less cumbersome and expensive to become a provider. We have always used independent providers here in the state of Ohio. And that process of becoming a certified independent provider is cumbersome and expensive. And there have been many times where we have paid for the certification process and some of the other costs that are involved for providers that we recruit and that we vet and that we want to hire, because it's too expensive. And the second part of that I want to say is that also to have to pay for the system to get paid, so that's another issue that in order to get paid as an independent provider, it's all direct or electronic payment, which is all, I understand that, but they have to subscribe or pay for that, a monthly fee in order to get paid. That has never made sense to me, and it doesn't seem fair to me. What other job is there out there that a person has to pay to get paid, to get their paycheck that they earned? It just doesn't make sense to me. And so it points to, sort of not valuing them again. And so if we just remember that, value these people who provide, such a service, who allow for people with disabilities to have a life. I keep thinking about, this isn't teenage babysitting, where you just pay them under the table, whatever. This is a career, and it should be a career. And I think that's how we would we can retain good people.
Thank you. Well said. Tanya, how would you answer that? What do you feel are the two biggest challenges to finding, hiring, and keeping direct care workers?
Sure. For me, the other aspect of the spectrum is I wish I could pay them more, because I value when you get somebody who's good. Because of being part of the PCA program and everything, I always have to have the conversation with my independent contractors, and that they always are very eager. And I've lost a lot of people because they don't like the fact that they have to supply their social security number, and that I have to give a copy of the, tax information to the PCA program. I think that they hope that it would be free under the table for as little money as it is. Explain to them that, I have to do it because without that reimbursement, I would be out a lot more money. Like I said, it's always an ongoing conversation. You have to delicately balance it and bring it in as I start the conversation with them, because I want them to know up front. For me, I've been paying them cash, and I have receipts and everything that they have to sign. That's a little bit of a motivation, even though, you've got the paperwork and everything else up front, they're okay with it. I wish that for me, like I said, the biggest thing is developmental disabilities. I started the process, 2016, and 2 years ago, I was told that, well, Tanya, we've put you on for reimbursement for PCA care. That is the best we can do for you. But the waivers are so far backed up, I was told maybe a year, and now I'm going on my third year of, so that's a big hinder of not having that access and right now, the feedback that I'm getting from everyone, and I know that even people that I know that are working in healthcare facilities and nursing facilities and everything, it's like everybody got accustomed to getting the COVID money and the extra incentives and all that. I just don't feel that they're ready to go back in the workforce yet, which is sad. And I wish there was a way we could kind of overturn that. So that, I think, is the monetary is definitely the biggest obstacle I have, because I can't pay them for what they're worth. The flip side, because I've tried even, a dollar more here or there and everything else, when you do it, like I said, it was a big transition for me to go from $10 to $15 an hour. It doesn't sound like much difference, but I literally find myself paying for my apartment, my personal care, and not really having a life of doing anything. I love to travel and stuff like that, because you can't do it anymore.
Mhm.
Even if you could, if the world got back to normal.
Right. Understood. Thank you.
That is thank you.
Tech here really quick. We have a couple of comments in the chat. Would you like me to address that now or later?
Why don't you let me wrap up Kim's comments, and then we'll do one more round of final thoughts, and then we'll give, I'll have you do that, Jamie.
Okay.
And then if Charles wants to weigh in with more questions or comments, that would be great.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Kim?
So we basically use independent providers because most agencies are unwilling to take our case due to the potential liability issues, caring for my son. So one of the main problems that we have is connecting with potential independent providers. It's a huge problem in the state. There is no one comprehensive, up-to-date, searchable database for us to connect those providers with clients. We currently use social media. We network with other people receiving services. We ask families or friends to sign up. So we're basically doing our own, we find them and we recruit them. But the other main problem is the time that it is needed to onboard them. And I'm talking strictly independent providers. To become an IP, there are startup costs, as Jackie mentioned. They run anywhere from $250 to $450, depending on the training needed to serve the client. I also want to say the wage rated agency or facility-based that direct care workers get is one of the main factors we are not attracting people to the field. And it's not just, IPs make significantly more, but your agency and your facility-based people are making between $9.50 and $12 an hour. And it's been my experience in 28 years that hasn't changed germanely enough to make people want to come into this career field. So I think those are the two of the main issues, among others, because there are many reasons why people have left the career field or are not coming into it. But I do think, and the other thing is when the 134th General Assembly passed House Bill 110, it included the need for direct healthcare workers to now, as of September 2022, to obtain licensure, which is $250, an additional $250 every 3 years, and a surety bond. So if you're an independent provider, you have to carry a $20,000 surety bond, and how much you pay for that surety bond on an annual basis is based on your credit rating. So that is another deterrent that just blows my mind that our legislator actually passed that just recently. As far as the things that I think that will help end it, I really believe that being a direct care worker is a calling. But I think in order to attract people who have the inclination that serving others might be something they want to do, Ohio must set a wage rate for all direct care workers that allows them to earn a living wage with benefits. At our current rates, to remain gainfully employed in this profession, they need help with childcare, they need gasoline stipends, they need affordable health, dental, and vision care, in addition to a living wage. I think they came out and they said that $13.16 an hour is what's going to put a roof over your head, food in your mouth, and gas in your car. Last I heard, 58% of agency direct care workers were receiving some form of public assistance, whether it was Medicaid or food stamps. So if we raised, if we shifted that money over into the direct care workers' wage rate and benefits, it would really just be a shifting of funds more than really costing us any more money. The other thing is training. CPR, first aid, and administration of medications no longer cuts it. Performing personal grooming tasks for another person, such as bathing, toileting, dressing, are not innate skills, nor is knowing how to care for somebody who has issues controlling their behaviors. These are person-centered trainings that need to occur, because what we've seen happen is that people come into this career field and they're thrust into a situation that they have absolutely no ability to understand or work with, and they jump ship. They're just like, yep, I didn't sign up for this, and they leave. And so I think the two things, if I had to say two things, would be, the wage and benefit cliff, as well as training, so that people are person-centered trained. I can do CPR and first aid on anybody, but can you bathe anybody, especially someone who has spastic quadriplegia, or that is total care like my son? I really think that people need to look at that.
Let's do one more round. One final comment or thought on all of this. Anything you haven't been able to say to the point of these are the consequences of not having direct care workers, or what is the solution in your mind? What's the one solution? So Jackie?
Yeah, I guess I'll just speak to that on, more of a personal level, in that this crisis really leaves me great worry about the future of my son. And I think about, and not everyone is in this situation, and we're fortunate, and my son is fortunate that he is a talented, gifted young man who he wants to work. He wants to have a life like so many of us. That's not going to happen for him without a personal care assistance. It's not going to happen.
Exactly.
And I think that we all deserve that opportunity. So that is it. And I know we're short of time, but we've talked about, Kim mentioned she searched for a year, and Tanya has searched. I know my family has searched for caregivers. And, I just wanted to offer to Charles is that if you, maybe you understand what that means when we say research, and maybe you don't really, have an idea of what that actually means. And I'd be more than happy. I know, again, we're short on time, but I'd like to be able to demonstrate to you what search in our family meant, because it's exhaustive and time consuming.
3 minutes.
That was actually going to be my comment, because there's been a lot of information here. And first I wanted to thank everybody too, but I didn't want to take up too much, people's time. I wanted to hear other people's comments to what they had with this forum. But I was going to give my my email address out so people could keep in contact with me or send me information that I can pass on to the senator, because I want him to see this as well. I'm going to send this to him once it's sent out. But yeah, I would like to go in depth more with that, to hear more about that as far as searching and, what the lengths that you have to go to just to get a caregiver, because clearly something's broken here.
Right.
Yeah.
Jamie, I have a technical question, because we're almost out of time. If this is recorded, is the chat available in the recorded document?
Should be.
In the recording, no, but I can save that, and I'll put my email in the chat. So if anybody wants to reach out to me to get a copy of the chat, I can definitely provide that.
Okay. All right, because we're just about out of time, and I have an obligation to wrap up with some comments that the Ohio Olmsted Task Force wanted to make about this. So I want to thank Jackie and Tanya and Kim for contributing their stories, and thank you to all of you who took the time to learn more about the issues facing people with disabilities in Ohio. The Ohio Olmsted Task Force is committed to continuing this conversation with our community and decision makers. Advocates know that fixing these issues will take time and a coordinated effort between the Ohio Department of Medicaid, Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, Ohio Department of Aging, and our governor's office. However, we have some suggestions on behalf of OTF in the short term. We must increase wages and provide reimbursement for training, mileage, and no-shows, provide healthcare benefits, and provide educational incentives for in-home providers. We must align the certification process for each waiver so that providers only need one certification to provide care to anyone who needs it, and fix the bureaucratic issues that cause delays in providers' ability to pay for providing services. We must create a college recruitment plan that draws workers into the field who are called to be part of a disability or healthcare profession. And we must extend the emergency authorization that allows family caregivers to get paid as in-home providers. In the long term, we need a multi-agency coordinated plan that addresses methods for recruitment, incentives, streamlined training and education, healthcare and retirement benefits, respectable wages, and career opportunities to make in-home care into a professional career. We thank you again for coming to discuss this issue, and we look forward to working together to ensure that people with disabilities have access to the supports they need to remain in the community. So again, I appreciate this. We will be in touch with you, Charles, and the senator as follow-up. Greatly appreciate your time to hear these stories and delve more into the issue.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
Can I just say one last thing?
Sure.
Really quick. We need to have changes made at the legislative level because they are the ones that set the wage rate for the people who are doing the direct support work. And they are the ones that decide whether or not they get benefits. And that's where change must come if we are going to have any hope of resolving this crisis.
Exactly.
That's true. And
Good way to wrap up. Thank you.
And Sue, can I say one final thought?
Sure.
You guys, just real quick. You know, if everyone, especially legislative member, would just remember at any point in time, you hope that nothing and nobody ever joins the disability community. But since we're an equal opportunist and accept everyone, you really just, how would you want your most loved person to be treated? And the thought of them struggling with these, you know, my family lives 3 hours away, and every night, my parents are in their 70s and they about, you know, cry that I'm going through this, but I'm like, it's got to turn around at some point.
It is a quality of life issue. It's what value we put on people with disabilities. If we say we want people to be contributors and included in their communities, including employment, education, what have you, then this is an important vehicle, the only way that that's going to happen. So again, I appreciate everyone's time, panelists, and all the participants on the webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You.
Thank you.